Good morning, everyone. I'm Ben Losky from the Department of Financial Services. First, I want to thank Baruch College and its president, Mitchell Wallerstein, for hosting us today. Thank you very much. I want to thank Chuck Bell from Consumers Union for being here, and I want to thank Karen Masucci for being here as well. And lastly, I want to thank the Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, for being here today. I'm going to give you a quick overview of why we are here. Then you'll hear from Chuck Bell, then Ms. Masucci, and then you'll hear from Governor Cuomo, after which we'd be happy to take your questions. The investigation we're here to speak about today began about a year ago. It began because we learned that life insurance companies around the country, many of whom are based here in New York, appeared to be sitting on millions and millions of dollars in unpaid life insurance proceeds. It turns out that sometimes people don't know or have forgotten that a loved one had a policy. In such cases, unfortunately, life insurance companies were not taking any proactive steps to find out if a policyholder had died and to locate their beneficiaries to pay them. As we investigated further, we learned that insurance companies actually had a surefire way of finding out if someone had died, but they simply weren't checking. There is what's called a Social Security Death Index computer database that is constantly updated, which can tell a company if a policyholder has died. We then learned through our investigation something even more disturbing. Life insurance companies, you see, usually do two main types of business: annuities, which pay people until they die, and life insurance, which pays out only after they die. It turned out that on the annuities side of the business, many companies were going to great efforts to find out if someone had died, because that meant the company could stop making payments. For the annuities business, they were cross-checking the database all the time. But, disturbingly, on the life insurance side of the company, many companies were not doing any checking at all to find out if a policyholder had died, which would mean the company would have to start paying out to beneficiaries. Now, while the companies were not legally required to cross-check, this seemed wrong, to say the least. So last summer, New York, under Governor Cuomo's leadership, became the first state in the nation to order the 172 life insurance companies who do business in New York to begin cross-checking that Social Security database with their millions and millions of policies. And we also ordered them to make efforts to find and pay the families whose policies matched up, and to pay it with interest. In other words, we told the companies it was time to get proactive and to seek out families whose funds the companies had been sitting on, in some cases for many, many years. Well, most of the results are now in, and we are announcing today that as a result of the proactive steps New York required these companies to take, nearly 33,000 families nationwide have been paid more than $262 million. In New York State alone, more than 7,500 people have been paid about $96 million. Going forward, we will be requiring all life insurance companies in New York to continue to cross-check the database with their policies on a routine and regular basis, so we won't see this happening again. The Cuomo administration will soon also be issuing a regulation to that effect. Maybe most importantly, we are now empowering consumers to protect themselves going forward. Today, we are announcing the creation of a new DFS-run website that will allow people to check for themselves whether any of New York's life insurance companies have a policy in the name of their loved ones. Through a single search on our Lost Policy Finder, consumers will be able to check all of them at once. And you can find that new Lost Policy Finder at nypolicyfinder.com. In sum, through the investigation, families are seeing more than $250 million flow to them. Going forward, we are taking steps to ensure that life insurers will be constantly checking to ensure beneficiaries get paid and that this problem doesn't occur again. And consumers are being empowered to find policies all on their own. Before I sit down, I want to thank the team at DFS, especially Mike Maffei and the Life Bureau, our consumer division under the head of Joy Feigenbaum, and our IT unit, who worked so hard on this investigation and the creation of the Lost Policy search engine. Lastly, I want to again thank the Governor for his leadership on this important issue and his dedication to protecting New York consumers. And of course, I want to thank him for his vision in creating DFS, a vision we are trying to live up to every day. I'd like to now introduce Chuck Bell from Consumers Union.
Thank you, Ben, for that introduction. And thank you, Governor Cuomo, for inviting me to speak here today. I'm Chuck Bell. I'm the Programs Director for Consumers Union. We're the nonprofit organization that publishes consumer reports based in Yonkers, New York. Well, we have great news for consumers today. Governor Cuomo has provided over 30,000 policyholders with the payouts and the benefits that they are entitled to. After hearing about the state's investigation, I was surprised at the sheer size of the problem. Huge amounts of money, over $250 million in claims nationwide, including $95.5 million due to New Yorkers alone. And this investigation is still going on. There's more to come. As information technology has improved, financial services companies have both the opportunity and the obligation to provide more effective, efficient services to consumers. And that is exactly what Governor Cuomo is doing. He is making sure that that opportunity will be realized. The state's investigation proves that even though good databases and information technology existed to find customers who were entitled to payments, the insurance industry lacked consistent incentives to use these tools to fulfill their contracts with their clients and their families. So Governor Cuomo wisely directed the industry to use the tools and technology that they had to do a much better job for their customers. The insurance companies certainly don't claim that consumers whose loved ones bought policies shouldn't get the benefits specified in those policies. And with the technology we have now, there's no doubt that the companies should have made proactive attempts to look for customers who hadn't been paid yet. The new Lost Policy Finder search application at nypolicyfinder.com, created by the state of New York, is an example of the Cuomo administration using all of its resources to create a more effective, efficient government that works for the people and not the insurance industry. This is a smart, fair solution that is simply great for New York consumers and consumers nationwide. We encourage other state insurance departments to step up to the plate and ensure that the great results that we're seeing here in New York are achieved across the entire country. It's now my pleasure to introduce Karen Masucci, who was only contacted years after her father died by her insurance agency. Thank you. Karen?
My father, Norman Kattenstroth, died in 2005 at age 91. While working to support my mother, sisters, and myself as a New York City fireman for 25 years, a roofer, and a Sears employee, he took out several life insurance policies to help protect our family financially. My mother predeceased him in 1995. Over the next 10 years, my father's memory declined. I stepped in, taking care of all financial issues. When he died in 2005, I had no records of a life insurance policy from New York Life, and I was surprised last year to get a claim packet to fill out from the company. So I contacted the company with all requested information, and shortly thereafter, my sisters Helen, Linda, and I received a policy payout totaling approximately $7,500. To some, this may not sound like a lot of money, but it was all my father could manage back in the 1970s when the policy was taken out. Maybe I was naive in thinking an insurance company would seek out policy beneficiaries, but thought no more about it until a gentleman from the New York State Department of Financial Services contacted me in December 2011. That is when I found out about the State of New York push for all insurance companies to settle policies by cross-checking information with Social Security death benefit records. The policy we collected on may not be life-changing, but it did sure help. People take out life insurance to help protect their loved ones in their absence, but as health and or memory fail or records get lost, survivors might have struggled financially more than they had to after a death because they were not aware of an existing policy in place. New York State is doing a great service by helping insurance companies pay out overdue claims by giving access to information people would have difficulty finding out on their own. This is an example of the governor's commitment to bringing fairness to New York, his commitment to making government work for the people, and his lifelong commitment to sticking up for those in need. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming and thanking the Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
You were great. You were great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. First to Baruch College and all of the people who worked so hard to set up this event. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for their hospitality and courtesy. It's a pleasure to be with President Wallerstein. The President and I had worked together in a different school years ago, which shall go nameless because it was not as prestigious as this fine university. But he is doing a great job at Baruch. I'm so excited about the progress that SUNY has made and the feeling in the SUNY system. And the President is really doing great work here at Baruch in a very short period of time. He also happens to be a great, great guy. Just to give you an example of what a fine gentleman the President is, any student who is here today gets 5 points extra credit just for being here. Isn't that great? Give him a round of applause, President Wallerstein. Karen Masucci, thank you very much for coming down and telling your story. I know it isn't easy. I know it isn't easy to speak about your father's passing, but it's an important message, and thank you for sharing it. We know that it's hard. We know that it's difficult, but it's important that we get this message out today, and you were very helpful in making that possible. Let's give her a round of applause, Karen Masucci. To Chuck Bell and Consumers Union, that does a great job, a really great job representing the consumers always. It's a pleasure to be with him once again and his great organization. And to Benjamin Lawsky, who is the superintendent of the Department of Financial Services, which is a new agency, as you know. He has really hit the ground running and has done a great organizational job and is making government work for the people, which is what it's all about. And he's doing that again today. Let's give him and DFS a round of applause. Today is self-explanatory, and I think you heard it from the other speakers very well. One of the roles of government is to ensure justice and to ensure fairness. Government represents the people, and one of government's roles is to make sure the people are treated fairly, period. It's that simple. A regulatory agency like the Department of Financial Services, its role is to make sure that corporations are treating people fairly. Well, don't corporations have that responsibility? Corporations have that ethic, but corporations are also responsible to the shareholder, they're responsible to the board, they're there to make a profit. And the government, the regulator, is only there to represent the people. And that's the relationship. That's the tension or the synergy, depending on your point of view. And this is a perfect example of that dynamic. Life insurance companies, when they had to pay an annuity, were very, very good at finding out who passed away. Why? Because when somebody passed away, they didn't have to pay the annuity anymore. So they checked that list. God forbid, somebody passed away, they didn't have to send the annuity check. They right away canceled the annuity check. They were not as aggressive or creative on looking at the list of deceased people to find out if they had a policy and if they had to pay out beneficiaries for that person. Why? Because in one matter, the corporation was saving money. In the other matter, the corporation was paying out money. They were more aggressive in the area that they were going to save money. They were less aggressive in the area where they were going to pay out to beneficiaries. DFS comes along and says you should be equally diligent on both sides of the equation. Work as hard to find the beneficiaries as you work to save your own money. And that is an inarguable calculus. Look at the difference that it has made. Since DFS put out that mandate, 32,000 payments to consumers across this country, $260 million paid out. Just think about that. Here in the state of New York, 7,500 payments, almost $100 million paid out to New Yorkers pursuant to policies that were paid in, like Karen's father, people who worked very hard, bought that policy because they wanted to leave something behind to their children, in this case to their beneficiaries. And DFS's mandate has made that possible. It's exactly what this new agency is supposed to be doing. Department of Financial Services took two old departments and added a new component. It took the old Department of Banking and the old Department of Insurance and put those two together, because those two agencies, in my opinion, really work together nowadays. The financial products are more sophisticated. And we added a consumer protection piece. So we said regulate the banking industry, regulate the insurance industry, but also protect the consumer as you're regulating those two entities. And look out for the consumer. And if the corporations aren't being fair, then you make sure they are fair. And that is exactly what DFS is doing today. We need the people of the state, people of the country to do their part. Represent yourself, Chuck Bell will always say. We have a website. Go to the website, nypolicyfinder.com, nypolicyfinder.com. Check the website to make sure that you're not a beneficiary who has unclaimed funds. That's what today is all about. And let me end where I began. Let me applaud DFS and the great team they have at DFS for a great public service, and that's what this is. You helped thousands of families across the state of New York. And we applaud you for that. Karen, thank you very much for sharing your message. And Baruch, thank you very much for hosting this event today. Thank you all very much.